introduction. My name is Almira Hasanovic, and I'm very happy to see you all here tonight. We have an exciting evening ahead filled with learning, idea sharing, and connected with one another. Our topic is Think Before You Build, the strategic role of development in project success, which will be presented by our guest speaker, Darko Misic. He will guide us through this interesting and important subject. First, I will say something about tonight's agenda. In first 10 minutes, I will tell something about suggested conduct. Then I will present PMI Germany chapter and our local group Darmstadt, and then I will introduce our today's speaker. Then next 1 hour and 10 minutes, Darko will speak about his presentation. And at the end, at the last 10 minutes, I will kindly ask you to provide us feedback about this event. Then I will give you information on the next events and provide video code. About suggested conduct guidelines, please mute your microphone during the session. Use full name to help us identify you for videos. Feel free to turn on your video if you like. Use the chat window to ask questions, comments, or share your LinkedIn link for networking. Of course, you're welcome to contact the speaker directly with any follow-up question. And this session will be recorded, and recording is allowed only to the organizers. Before we get started, let me give you a short introduction to our chapter. The PMI Germany chapter was founded in 2020 as a result of the merger of 4 existing chapters. The PMI Frankfurt chapter, established back in 1988, was in fact the very first PMI chapter in Europe. Today, the Germany chapter brings together more than 11,000 members, including nearly 4,000 professionals representing 43 different countries. With around 150 active volunteers, our purpose is to inspire leadership, promote continuous learning, strengthen professional connections, and create positive social impact through projects. Now, let me share a bit about who we are. The local group Darmstadt serves as the English-speaking community, a diverse network of volunteers from 6 different countries working together to create meaningful learning experience that connect professionals across borders. Every month we host 2 free online sessions open to everyone, and once a month we have in person our round table in Darmstadt. Since we first started, more than 3,100 participants have joined our events, and impressively, over 100 of them have attended 10 or more sessions. Our conversations, of course, don't end when the events do. On LinkedIn, our network of almost 500 members continues to share ideas, insights, and encouragement. And behind all of this activity stands a team of volunteers, Mr. Thomas Valenta, who is joining us from Bad Kreuznach, from Germany, Florian Adrian, our team lead from France, he's based in Darmstadt, Mohamed Razi, originally from Afghanistan, but also based in Darmstadt. Then we have Tufik Habli, contributing from Beirut, Lebanon. Oля Stefanovska, she's based in Stuttgart, but from North Macedonia originally. Then Maria Robi, originally from North Macedonia, currently based in Brussels. And myself, Almira Hasanovic from Montenegro, and last 3 years I'm here in Büttelbo, near Darmstadt. Today, we have the honor of introducing Darko Misic, a professional with extensive experience in luxury hospitality, branded residences, lifestyle communities, mixed-use developments, and golf master plans. He has 15 years of experience in delivering luxury hospitality projects, branded residences, and lifestyle communities. He's leading Aman's European expansion, full cycle development from feasibility to delivery. He managed a portfolio worth over 1 billion at Lushtica Bay, including residential, mixed-use, hospitality, golf, and marina projects. Darko developed project frameworks, improved efficiency, and enhanced financial performance. Previously, as senior project manager at Porto Montenegro, he successfully delivered multiple five-star facilities on time and within budget. And now, please join me in welcoming Darko Misic, an expert whose broad expertise and dedication will surely inspire all of us. So, Darko, it's your time.
Thank you, Almira, and happy to see all of you tonight. It is my pleasure to be able actually to present on this topic, and hopefully we leave this evening a bit more educated and with a bit better perspective on development, hopefully. So if you wish, I can start sharing, Almira, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I can share. It doesn't have to be through. Okay, so tonight's topic is think before you build, the strategic role of development in project success. Almira already did intro, so I've been in this business for 15 years and I come through project management experience. So I've been working almost half of these 15 years as a PM or senior PM, and then I transitioned to development role. And I think it's quite useful career path to actually start with PM and to transition to DM, because it gives a holistic perspective and approach to project planning. My education is, as you can see, I'm a civil engineer by training, but I've done construction management and property finance later in my career. So without further ado, today's agenda will be basically split in two major sections. So we will focus on strategic development on macro level, and later we will talk about project development on micro level, which are basically processes that flow from one to another, and you will see how logically they are integrated. Why this topic matters? Every year, around $400 billion is wasted globally on poorly defined or miscoped projects. So that's staggering amount. And what if we say that 80% of that waste happens even before the construction starts? So essentially, on a strategic level, PM and DM are basically two sides of the same coin. So we can look at them as interconnected disciplines, where development management sets strategic foundation while project management ensures the execution. We have to be able to strategically think first, because as we said, poor upfront planning leads to high percentage of project failures. And it is always our intention to have a framework integration. In this example, I used RIBA Plan of Work 2020 as a systematic approach to linking strategic development thinking to PM processes. A nice definition would be that development is the disciplined process of shaping the right project before committing irreversible resources. So upfront thinking, basically. This is where we actually draw the line between project management and development management. I'm sure you've all seen the famous triangle of quality, time, and cost in your careers. And basically, the joke goes that you can only have two if you're lucky. So if you have cost and time, that means the quality is suffering. And if you have quality and time, that means something's wrong with the cost. So all of these, all jokes aside, the triangle works only if the scope is correct. If your scope is incorrect or your design documentation is incomplete, the project is basically set up for failure. Or if any other aspects of the project, like financing or markets targeting or whatever is off, you are setting yourself for a disaster. And we have internationally numerous examples of failed, so to say, projects, or that were too big to fail, if I may say so, like Sydney Opera or La Manche Channel, that exceeded the budgets multiple times and were 10 years in delay. So basically, focus of project management is doing the project right. And the time horizon is usually the project life cycle, which can be a year, 18 months, or 3 years. It doesn't matter. The key question is how do we deliver on time and budget? And core deliverables, schedule, cost, quality, and risk, all well-known things to our professionals in the industry. On the other side, we have development management, which is doing the right projects from the get-go, with much bigger time horizon of 5 to 25 years. And the key question, is this viable and worth doing? Because let's remind ourselves, if we are talking about real estate development, the core business is generating profit for investors or for the company. So if our projects are beautiful and beautifully executed without a market to sustain it or units that we can't sell, then it's a wasted opportunity. So core deliverables are feasibility, phasing, funding, market fit, and design to a certain extent, because development also needs to set the tone and architectural language of the project itself. And basically, the decisions that we make in the first 20% or even less of the timeline of the project will drive 80% of total cost and success. That's what practice shows. For a RIBA perspective, I just wanted to explain maybe for colleagues which are not from construction industry. RIBA is Royal Institute of British Architects, which is almost a 200-year-old professional body, which provides RIBA plan of work as a structured industry standard model that emphasizes complete life cycle of a project. And it's very useful to actually here focus for a strategic level on phases 0 and 1 from 8 phases that they are elaborating. So this is basically where we define our business objectives and success criteria. We establish the project brief and any requirements, align stakeholders early, and develop long-term planning based on market data. In order not to keep this too generic and with a lot of definitions, I have selected a couple of projects that I hope you find useful and interesting. This is one of my previous employers that I worked. It's Orascom Development Holding Company, which is a big international developer. They have projects in Switzerland, UK, Oman, Egypt, and one of them is based basically in Montenegro. This is the biggest greenfield project still in Montenegro. 7 million square meters of land bank, more than 1 billion euro of investment, 7 planned hotels, 1 already constructed, 18-hole professional golf course, around 4 or 5 holes have been completed so far. So good case study of things that were done well and things that were done maybe not so well. So just to show you a drone footage that this is not just purely theoretical, this is actually being built. This is now maybe only 10% or 15% from the overall development timeline. So it's still at the very early phase of the development. And remember this photo, there are a couple of items that I want to discuss with you later in the presentation. While we focus on macro perspective, there are several very, let's say, almost key aspects to strategic development. So the land and the land bank that we own, we have to strategically plan it. We have to have proper master plan in place with vision, what we are doing, which product are we delivering, the placemaking that we are ensuring for our future homeowners and buyers. We need to have clear strategy on approvals, clear understanding on urban parameters, density studies, infrastructure requirements, environmental considerations. So all of that falls within land planning. Next thing, which is extremely, if not even more important, is the market. So our market research, where we see ourselves in the market, our competitors, what are they doing, where are we positioned in the market, what is the segmentation, what are the products that we are able to offer to the market, and what is our core sales and marketing strategy. And putting everything together comes to the boring part, which is the financial modeling. And it is probably the most important bit that actually combines the historical data from the company, the market trends, everything, all the know-how in the company. So it has to take into consideration the sequencing, the programming, the return assumptions, the phasing, the inventory that you will have at hand of all the products that you are offering to the market, financial requirements, risk allocation, and of course, strategic procurement considerations. So this is basically where you need to ensure that all the business criteria is met, because once again, we develop real estate to meet certain business criteria, whether it's gross profit margin or development margin. Every business has its own way of measuring success. So again, to illustrate in more detail, I just took a few snapshots from financial model. For obvious reasons, I had to blur down the numbers. I hope you don't mind, but the principles are there. So you would usually, on a strategic level, you would consider your land parameters. So your parcel sizes, your buildable area, your gross sellable area that you have on disposal, and you would make key assumptions. So how much the construction will cost for each asset class, how much the margin you're expecting on each asset class. So basically, everything is put together in a model that also takes into consideration long-term sales planning. Here in the corner, you can see this is a simplified sales plan for, let's say, 10-year period. And there is a fine balance of what strategically company is doing, which might sound trivial, but for example, you might have, let's say, cheaper units that will sell fast, but you don't want to release them all at the same time in the market because you want to have market segmentations and portfolio of projects to actually cover for wide variety of products. So from your entry point into the market to your, for example, ultra luxury villas that cost 5 or 6 millions per unit. So it is a fine balance between placemaking and sustaining your sales plan through the years. If I just go back to the photo that I showed you, as a good example, we see Marina Village here. It's a good placemaking exercise because in a relatively short period of time, it was fully completed and sold with Chedi Hotel as an anchor to destination, and F&B and retail and everything that makes a destination desirable, so people actually want to come and live there. But on the other hand, you run out of the product relatively in a short period of time. So in 5 years' time or in 2 years' time, you don't have beautiful apartment with unobstructed sea views to sell. You need to focus and shift your strategies to other products that you have: golf villas, golf townhomes, urban developments that emphasize slightly different lifestyles. So between placemaking and sales planning, there is a fine balance, and it's something that company needs to plan for. I go back to our technical part. So basically, all of this together, just to summarize it, it will give us the financial viability of the project itself. And we can see here very simplified cash flow that tells us the equity requirements or bank financing or whatever the financing structure is. And basically, it gives us green light, go or no go for the project. Couple of things to focus when we are building resilient development strategies: system resiliency and phasing. Basically, what we discussed a couple of minutes ago. So choosing between placemaking and opportunities beyond sales velocity. Prioritizing community amenities and infrastructure. These are not revenue generating assets. So these are upfront costs that you need to plan for to make your project viable. All the investments in beaches, in roads, and hard infrastructure, transformer stations, all needs to be planned for. Sales and marketing strategy that is driven by realistic sales velocity, because we have to be realistic when we plan using historical data and market trends. Same goes for the absorption assumptions, which are tightly related to market analysis, and the product segmentation that we already discussed. So we need to ensure the market fit. It is no use building beautiful building and having beautiful apartments if no one is going to buy them. And of course, the financial part, where feasibility and financing come into play, where development models need to integrate pre-sales requirements. On projects like this, usually developer would not start constructing before collecting, let's say, 40% of the units sold for particular building or group of buildings. So financial structure needs to be robust, needs to have a certain resiliency to maybe macroeconomic factors. So all of that needs to be part of the strategy and of the financial model. These are also very important considerations in terms of procurement, infrastructure, and sustainability. When you consider strategic development planning, local market considerations really quickly come into play. It is all very well on paper if you plan on constructing several phases at the same time and your financial models are proving that it's viable. But if your local market cannot sustain with concrete contractors or with earthwork contractors or availability of certain material in the market, then the planning is off and the actual development plan is not good. So that's a serious constraint that a lot of developers do not consider very early in their planning. But also there are opportunities that can be explored. So, for example, if you know that in next 4 or 5 years you'll be delivering certain number of apartments that will sell certain type of kitchen, for example, you can go directly to Nolte or Scavolini or whomever and have a framework in place and have very favorable rates in terms of procurement and installation of their kitchens, sustained workload for them and cost certainty for the developer. The infrastructure planning is something that's a backbone of development, and of course it's something that needs to be planned in advance. Utilities and services, community infrastructure, which is also part of the placemaking with schools, healthcare, amenities, access and connectivity, it all ties into the fabric of local communities, so incredibly important part. And last but not least, sustainability, the buzzword of this decade, I think. So environmental impact assessment, energy and water strategies, grey water recycling, renewable energy. Of course, it has to make sense. You can't just build a, let's say, solar farm that will cover incredible amount of buildable area just to have, let's say, a sustainability benefit there, but it has to make sense operationally, commercially, and yeah, for the end user to make sense. Risk management matrix, this is really high level overview, what you would usually think of for a strategic development, market demand, regulatory changes, financing availability, construction costs, and environmental factors. Construction cost is interesting one, given the situation in the world and macroeconomy and how inflation is affecting every sector. So again, the system needs to be robust enough to plan for all of these eventualities. This is just a snapshot how far Luštica has come from original master plan set in 2011 to actually having completed, for example, Marina Village in 2024, the architectural language and design intent and the placemaking that was intended is actually very well translated into the reality. Next topic is probably something that aligns more with PM ethos. So micro perspective in strategic development is basically translating everything to a specific project level. We again use RIBA framework as a reference. So basically designing the product and procuring it and constructing it and putting it in use. Again, to show you what a realistic example would look like, there is a certain plot in one of the developments it allows for a couple of buildings and certain amount of buildable area of square meters to be planned on that parcel, just to illustrate how the thinking process goes and what are the design iterations and product mix that needs to be considered to actually come to the final product. So you start by looking at the parameters, you start what's possible to build, you need to have the input from your sales team, what would be the best product for that particular plot and what would sell fast, what are the USPs as unique selling propositions for that particular product, whether it's sea view, excuse me, whether it's a sea view or amenities or pool or extremely nice finishes, it all comes into play when designing and building the model for this particular product. So you can see from left to right how it starts with rudimentary planning. It slowly gets translated into the most viable option. Everything is considered: sea views, blockage of another parcel, whether it makes sense traffic-wise. So proper urban planning exercise. And then in the bottom right corner, you can see the end product, basically something that fulfills sales requirements with number of units, sizes of units, something that works financially and yields the profit to the company that's measured across each individual project and holistically. This is a bit boring slide, but I think it's quite important in terms of the delineation between development and projects team. This is something that I encountered in companies that I worked for. Either there is a clear split between development and project management, or they are combined in one, let's say, business unit, which, in my opinion, is much better way of using the resources. So in the initial phases, as we explained, this is also heavily relying on RIBA phases, slightly translated to Montenegrin context. You would have your development team working hard on the first several strategic phases, and you would have the input of project delivery team with their know-how, buildability, considerations, program, and so on. And then at certain stage in the project, for example, RIBA stage 2 or finalized concept design, or however you want to call it in different countries, you would have basically a package that's signed off in terms of estimated costs, that has the first set of approvals from relevant authorities, that's been approved by all the relevant stakeholders, and that it's actually ready to be further developed with project team, constructed and successfully handed over. Something that I wanted to share with you as well, but I can't really speak about particular projects because the company that I work for, Aman, is let's say a leader in ultra luxury developments, and basically before anything you can find in the media is highly restricted. So this is something that's basically a consideration for a generic high ultra luxury hotel development. So everything that we discussed today that applies from a strategic perspective and micro perspective is applicable for ultra luxury hospitality development projects, with additional constraints, of course, that makes them unique and specific in their own way. So starting from land purchase and location, that's something that needs to align with brand ethos in terms of what is the product that we apologies, what is the product that we offer to our clients, whether these are secluded locations in very remote islands or forests. That's something that's carefully picked and that is driving the complete story about that particular property. The project governance is probably something that's most important in the early stages of planning with stakeholder management. You have several tiers of stakeholders: investors, developer, operator. They all have their own rights and requirements in that regard. So everything needs to be clearly defined from the get-go. And then when you bring in the operator/developer internal complexities, such as technical services team, operations, F&B, security, and many other departments that actually have to give their input in designing and operating the property, you see how quickly the exercise becomes much more complex compared to regular residential development. So that being said, project financing is something that's clearly defined from the get-go. The let's say core pillar of ultra luxury hospitality development, with investors usually being on board that are putting their equity in the project itself. And then we can again translate on a micro level where we have to have local project team that will guide us through local legislation, local design teams, all the consultancies that we require to actually execute the project successfully. And we need to have delegated authority framework in regards to clear roles and responsibilities and the authority that certain individual has on the project. For example, my PM has certain authority to sign off engineer's instructions up to certain value, for example. Communication protocols, essential, of course, how we communicate between ourselves. And one of the challenges that I find particularly interesting is design fragmentation, because all of the ultra luxury developments have a signature architect that's actually an artist that creates something from the scratch, and then you have a very challenging task implementing everything on a realistic local level to actually drive that vision into something that's buildable, that's commercially viable, and that's, from procurement perspective, sustainable in local environments. Imagine just building something on an island in Maldives and the availability of contractors and materials and everything that comes into play. Cost planning is also something that's tightly related to uniqueness of the design, because sometimes it's really difficult anticipating upfront the costs that are, for bespoke items, for a bathtub carved out of single piece of marble, or certain types of cladding, or anything that the lead designer might actually envisage for that particular product. So financial modeling becomes really challenging in that regard, because you have to have a robust system with scenarios that would come into play if the budgets are breached, or if we have to run value engineering exercises at certain time in the project. But the cost planning, of course, as for every project, crucial part of the micro development perspective. Procurement strategy, again, as discussed, there are local considerations that come into play. I can tell you from my experience, construction management as least desirable route, but sometimes inevitable, because sometimes you just have to fast track the project. You have certain portions of design that are completed. You have to act quickly. You have to complete your earthworks, your concrete frame, while the other stages of design are being completed. So there are ways of doing it, again, depending on the holistic picture, where you are geographically, what are your finances, and what is your timeline for delivering the project in the end. And last but not least, contracting strategy, something that also might seem trivial, but again, when you are in small markets and when you hand out a FIDIC contract to a local contractor, you will more often than not find resistance in actually finding the appropriate contractors that will work, for example, under construction management scheme. So this is something that's, let's say, distilled for ultra luxury hospitality. All the principles that we discussed apply, with specifics that are tightly related to this branch. Regarding the key takeaways, I really try to keep this short so we have maybe more time for open discussion and Q&A session. But integrating development thinking with project management basically, development management is a strategic project management. Again, these are two sides of the same coin, should be always considered together. That's why I mentioned that in businesses that treat these functions as separate departments, I often found lack of communication, lack of understanding for one another's needs. So it has to be one holistic system. Great delivery PMs can save you 5 to 15% on a project. So that's true. I worked with some of really good PMs, extremely intelligent people and hardworking, but there is only so much they can do on a given project. Good development thinking can prevent 50 to 100% losses, or even more. Another thing which we need to start asking, are we solving the right problem before are we on schedule? That's basically core development. Again, using the RIBA framework, I mentioned it a couple of times in this presentation, but I hope you also find a good use for it, especially the early stages in RIBA framework are a robust DM framework and checklist, basically. And then we have phasing, financing, and marketing strategy. It has to be stress tested early, as we discussed in the beginning of the presentation. Market strategy, market positioning, essential for a big land developer to plan in phases, to have inventory which is covering the wide variety of products from entry level to ultra high luxury, with sustainable sales plans throughout the years, with organic growth of the development, placemaking, everything comes into play. And then, of course, we need to integrate sustainability, procurement, and operations from the concept stage. These are things that cannot come as an afterthought because they cost you dearly in the end. So this is something that's also part of strategic thinking. And then lastly, development management is a strategic and not administrative role. I cannot stress that enough. Even when I encounter LinkedIn job adverts or when we are employing people, there is a misconception that development management is purely a design management role, which is essentially wrong. It is much more than that, and design management is only one fraction of the good development process. I see now the time. I've kept this really quick and short. So you have my email and my LinkedIn. If you have any questions after this presentation, feel free to reach out. Almira, if you wish, we can go with the Q&A, or if you wish, we can go back to any of the topics that we discussed.
Okay, I would like first to thank you very much for this presentation. For me, this was interesting because I'm from this construction industry, so you provided a lot of information how much development is important in construction and in project success. We have here one question. How is risk management in construction world handled? From Sven Walker in our chat.
Yes, I see it now. Sven. Hi, Sven. So risk management is something that runs from development management to project management. So just the risks are different at different stages of the project. So early on, as we discussed in one of the slides, you would have your permitting risks, your financing risks, your sales risks, and then as you transition and you de-risk the project and you are coming closer to the completion of the project, you would encounter project-specific risks in terms of procurement, construction, design, documentation. So from my experience, a risk register is just something that's handled from the day one and passed on through PM colleagues that are continuing to manage it throughout the execution of the project. I hope this answers your question. We have another one, Almira. In IT projects, I often see...
Okay.
Do you want me to read it?
Fine.
In IT projects, I often see pressure to start development quickly. From your experience, what is the simplest way a PM can slow things down just enough to make sure we are actually solving the right problem? That's a very good question. Of course, this is heavily context-based. If you are under pressure to start project quickly, you would need to, let's say, communicate clearly what are the risks of doing X, Y, and Z before we have certain procedures in place, before we have certain topics discussed. So basically, it comes down to managing expectations. Okay, we can do it, but just bear in mind the risk associated is X, Y, and Z. It can be quantified at very early stages. So you communicate that to your decision makers, and they are in position to act, to make informed decision based on your feedback. That's what I was doing when I was in similar situations. Okay, we need to place this contract. We cannot do that because we don't have construction documentation completed. We need another 3 weeks to have BOQs completed. If we do it now, we are exposing ourselves to the risk of future variations, additional works, contract issues, extension of time, and so on. So it's about communicating the right message and providing your decision makers with tools to act properly. I hope this is the answer that you are after, even though it's IT sector. Lana, here's a question. Risk related to restrictive outcomes of archaeological investigation. How often are such constraints the case for this type of construction projects? This is also a very good question. I can give example, let's say not archaeological in nature, but close in terms of unexpectedness, so to say. So in one of my previous projects in Porto Montenegro, it was old naval base, which was heavily bombarded throughout the history of that region. And before you start any project, any construction project, you need to do the mining of the soil. So there is a special procedure in place if you find World War II mine buried somewhere deep. So basically, that's a risk that was always taken into consideration in planning of the projects, but that's down to the experience of the developer. We knew that these are possibilities, so we planned accordingly. In terms of archaeological investigations, specifically, FIDIC, if you are already in construction phase, for example, and your contractor finds archaeological artifacts, you would have certain clauses and procedures that would outline what are the rights of certain parties. So contractor would be granted extension of time until the authorities do their thing. And yeah, it would be an unpleasant situation for sure.
Yeah, maybe if you can hear me.
Yes.
My question was because in urban areas, it's quite common to get into troubles during the construction phases with archaeological unpredictable things. And my question was actually in this specific type of construction project where it's a luxury villas somewhere on the seaside or doesn't matter on water side. How often does this happen? Like, how often does somebody find something? Because actually this risk is crucial for the construction project because archaeological, all the works which are done, investigations later after something is found, it might take 10, 15 years even, depends on what is found. So this was my question rather In urban areas, it's quite, yeah, I know it's quite often. But what about this like specific type? I mean, on the like it looks like in the nature more, but do you like from your experience, is it often that somebody finds something on the seaside or it's rather
Understood.
not? Because there was also
luckily,
a picture before, what was before and what was kind of is the aim of the project to rebuild. Yeah, so it's a question.
Okay, so it's a basically twofold answer. If we are talking about big land developer, for example, like I presented the case study for Luštice development with 7 million square meters of land, then you have some flexibility to deal with those problems. So if one of your zones is affected by archaeological findings, you would have actually other plots to develop. So you could still protect the viability of the business and work around it, so to say. For my current employer, if we are talking about remote destination somewhere where we are building hotel, it is less likely that it will happen that we find something underground. Of course, there is a due diligence that needs to happen before we engage into the project, and we usually have local partners that are advising us on all legal matters and all specifics like archaeological investigations. So basically, it's a slim chance to find something like that. I still haven't heard that we had issues of that type. But for a big land developer, there would be, let's say, a contingency plan in place to develop something else instead. If that happens and you are just constrained for that particular plot, or you are a developer who bought only one urban plot and planning to develop a hotel or a skyscraper, then you are in big trouble. And I mean, there are very lengthy processes and commercial impact to the project.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We have another from Lawrence. How did you adjust the plans and the execution when some market variable you can't control radically changed and affected the financial model and overall bottom line? This is also a very good question. We can go back to COVID years, 2020. This actually happened in Luštice development. We had a hotel basically already designed. We were at Riba stage 4, I think, and we had to stop. We had to stop all the activities on that hotel. We didn't proceed with the procurement, even though we organized the tender. We had the tenders back in and tender analysis in the process, and the strategic decision was to shift our focus to real estate and to rehabilitate the company finances before we can again start thinking about 5-star hotel. So again, this is heavily context based. As a big land developer, you have opportunities that smaller developers might not have. But that's how we dealt with COVID, for example. Have you ever used agile methodology in the construction field? If so, could you share some examples? Most of the things that we do is still, I mean, the entire industry is still heavily reliant on traditional project management. So there are ways of integrating agile processes in very particular cases. If you want to expedite certain, I would say, certain part of design that needs inputs from a couple of work groups or a couple of specialist consultants, I could see it happening in such a way. But generally, from what I've seen so far, it's purely traditional route. If a project starts drifting away, this is a question from Terry, from the intended strategy, what is the most effective way for a PM to reset expectations with stakeholders and development teams? Okay, so again, development management and project management worked in tandem. So if you are halfway through construction and your project starts drifting away, maybe your estimated final account says that you will overrun costs by 2 million, or your extension of time claim from your contractor says that you will finish 6 months later. The most effective way is, again, to communicate clearly, to prepare options for decision makers, because as bad as it sounds halfway through project, there are things that can be done to mitigate the effect of such events. For example, if you are exceeding the budgets that were set from the get-go, you can still reprice the remaining inventory. In a building of 100 apartments, you sold 60 halfway through it, and the remaining 40 can be rebranded as a new phase release or offered some new amenities and basically commanding higher prices and recouping part of the lost profit that you have with increased costs, for example. If it's about extension of time, I mean, as you know, there are PM strategies that can be deployed as recovery programs, including of other contractors or increasing of the resources of everything that you already know as a PM tools. But again, you need to be clear about communicating these events because the business needs to look the legal exposure, for example. All of these sold units will have handover dates, and usually in the sales and purchase agreements, you would have certain flexibility to actually delay a handover without any penalties to the company. So there are ways of actually managing those effects. But again, it's about managing of the expectations. You need to provide very detailed feedback and provide to your decision makers enough information so they do the right thing. Hope this answers your question. Sven, one more please. Can you provide some insights into potential environmental impact, future risk? I'm asking out of curiosity. Yes. Also, example from Porto Montenegro, also underground issue, you find buried crude oil tanks, for example, and mistakenly they get pierced and you have environmental issue. Then you need to deal with specialist contractors that only deal with that kind of waste. They cost you money and time, of course, but these are things that are inherent risks with that kind of development. So yeah, I mean, we all know planning is a really delicate matter, and you can always say, okay, for safety purposes, I will plan earthworks to last a year, even though realistically we can finish it in 1 month. Nobody would sign off on that. So again, there is a fine balance between the risk, what's doable, what's overcautious. So that's also part of very tough strategic decisions that business needs to make. Okay, I think we ran out of questions. Thank you, Sven. If I'm seeing correctly, yeah, this was the last one.
Yes, this is the last one question. So if there are no more questions, I will continue with my presentation. Just if please you can stop sharing your screen. Darko. Yes. I'm waiting for this. Until that time, please, if you can provide us your feedback related to this presentation. I sent you one more time this Mentimeter questions because we have in this moment 29 registrants, and we received only 6 feedback. I'm trying to share. Okay. So work now.
Almira,
Yes.
I have a question to the audience because somebody tried to log into our event and told me in an email that they couldn't access through the web browser. They needed to have the Microsoft app. Is anybody here on the audience who accesses this event through the web browser? Please raise your hand.
Yes.
Only one.
Okay. Norbert and Lana. Okay. So maybe she had another problem.
Most probably.
Thank you.
Because I sent her the link and I saw her shortly logging into our webinar, but I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so until the end of this presentation, if you can, it's just 2 minutes to provide us this feedback related to presentation. Then I will give you some information about our next events. On 15th of December, we will have our 38 roundtable at the Christmas market in Darmstadt. On 17 December, we will have our online webinar, Personal Branding, with Seppi Hamzolu from France. Then on 15th of January, we will also have our online local group Darmstadt webinar, Project Management in the Water Business with Josephine Gaipucci. And for more events, you can visit our PMI Germany chapter website. So at the end, I would like to invite you to join our mission. At local group Darmstadt, we really live every day the values that PMI Germany chapter promotes: diversity, collaboration, and global connectivity. Our team is composed of 7 volunteers from 6 countries, united by a shared passion for project management, knowledge exchange, and community development. We also believe that everyone has something important to contribute, no matter where they are. We're always looking for new members, eager to learn, innovate, and actively participate. Volunteering is, of course, an opportunity to develop your skills through collaboration with experienced professionals, influence how we learn and manage projects together, help others grow and strengthen their network, become a part of community that values your story, voice, and ideas. For some more information and opportunity to join us, you can visit also our website and check if you want to join our group or some other, or to join this Germany chapter or some else. And I think that together we can show that PMI Germany chapter is not just a network, it is a global community of leaders and innovators. So here I would like, this is the PDU code, you can use it. I can share also that in chat. I will also send it to you together with Darko's presentation and with YouTube. Thomas will share this presentation on YouTube. Do you have any comments, Darko or someone else?
I think Johan has his hand raised. I'm not sure if you want to share something, Johan, or is it an old hand?
No, that's my hand from the question regarding web. So yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay,
no
thank
question.
you.
Thanks for the session, everybody, and have a nice Christmas period. So thank you very much for your whole support the whole year on. So yeah, it's I like it. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Johan.
Thank you all.
Was...
I just wanted to also wish you a happy festive season, and it's been a pleasure talking to all of you tonight. Thank you, Almira, for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just because we're saying good Christmas season, but we still have another webinar in the week before Christmas.
Yes. So I already shared that information, so you're welcome on 17th of December to join this webinar. Okay. Thank you very much. It was a little shorter but it was a very interesting and interactive session. So thank you, Darko, for your time. And all of you, I wish you nice holidays and nice evening. So
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darko.
Thank you so much, Darko.